SEC comes out and says something, just like they did about XRP, we're going to get news. Good, bad, ugly, it doesn't matter what it is, we're going to get global recognition and news. And here's what we all know. And for those of you who don't know, we're going to teach you something. The RH ecosystem supporters, those of us who have been in from the beginning, those of us who watched Richard build Hex, those of us that actually unpeeled the onion of Hex in the beginning and understood how it worked, what it was, we knew that we had our hands on true DeFi, true DeFi crypto that nobody can touch, nobody can turn off, nobody can change what it does, and it hasn't been changed for 3 years. The same thing with Pulse. When Pulse came out, I knew that the SEC subpoena was trying to go after the sacrifice phase and Richard. And here's what I know about that, is that the first time they came at us, it wasn't wrote properly. So they probably came again. Now, I want you guys to know where this is coming from. There has been people out there that have been disgruntled and angry and trying to go after Richard, and they've submitted all this stuff to the SEC. The SEC didn't come in and start investigating. There were complaints. There was a particular person that actually went in and filed some complaints. So they're having to do their investigations. Well, now that a lot of things have come out, now that the movie is coming out and people are seeing it, if you look at what they wrote in this next one, and like I said, I haven't seen the whole thing, but it appears that they're trying to get Richard for misappropriation of funds. And here's one thing that those of us who've been around long enough know. Richard was highly invested in crypto and Bitcoin in the early days. The man has lots of money. He's done very well. We also know that the funds for the sacrifice have been just sitting there. In fact, we've all been complaining, well, not all of us, but most of us have been complaining that Richard hasn't provided liquidity. He hasn't come in and tried to pump the price. He hasn't come in and tried to do anything with any of that. He's got all this money. When's Richard going to come save the day? Well, Richard's a smart guy. And for those of you who weren't around before Pulsechain was being just talked about, there were a few streams in there, and I'd like to go in and find them. But Richard was having conversations with lawyers, and he was saying this. He wasn't saying exactly what those conversations were. And it was like, why is Richard, talking to lawyers about all of this stuff? So as I'm starting to put two and two together from the way back picture, look at the 30,000 foot level and look at what Richard was doing. Richard is a smart man. We know he is a master tactician. The man knows how to strategize, and his tactics have been unbeatable. He has been unbeatable with his tactics. He did his outrage marketing to gain followers, to get views, to get people outraged, to get people talking about what it is he was doing, and it worked. And then he pivoted and took a step, launched Pulsechain, and then he's been absolutely, completely silent, quiet, not talking to any of us that he has talked to in the past, just sitting back and waiting. So in my thoughts, Richard has been gathering and getting things ready for exactly these moments. He knew this was coming, and in fact, all of us knew it was coming. We knew the SEC wasn't going to stop coming after Richard. We knew it. Even with those of us who had been subpoenaed, they were looking to go get Richard. Now, this is just my thesis and what I think. The misappropriation of funds is going to fall on its face because Richard had enough money to get the things that he's got on his own, and he hasn't misappropriated any funds. So if you look at what they're going for and what they're trying to get him on, there's a nothing burger there. Look at what the SEC has done in the past. Look at what happened to XRP. Look at how they got off. You can see that their history has just been one mistake after another, and no crypto founder has ever been really blasted, other than just recently Mr. Mashinsky, who was saying Richard was going to end up in a jumpsuit, ended up in an orange jumpsuit because of what he did. Richard hasn't done the things that these other folks have done. Richard has provided us with true DeFi protocols. When one of the cool things and one of the other things to remember is that when he launched Pulsechain, he controlled the validators at first. And then what happened, as soon as enough validators came online, and they're continuing to grow to this day, he pulled all of his validators and burned all the coin. So that means that Richard has absolutely no hand in this decentralized platform. This L1 is running on community effort only. And I hear you guys talking about these things, but if like you said, going to see some price dip action. In our market, it doesn't matter. We're not going to see price rises until probably next year sometime. And guess what? we're going to get free press for a whole freaking year. And we got a movie that that may be just going global soon. So just think about that for a minute. Think about the recognition. Think about the things that we are about to see, what is about to happen. And yes, this is a test of everybody's hands right now. I've always loved being the underdog. I was a Marine, so I love being in the fight. I love it coming at me. I love it. And it's only because I know that every battle we fight, every battle we win, we get stronger and stronger and stronger. And that's what this community has done. In the beginning, when I only had 8 viewers on my stream, we went and looked at the first stream and there was 8 people watching us. We knew that the FUD was coming hard, and it was coming hard then. I mean, we were getting death threats, we were getting doxxed, we were being told we were scammers. Richard's name was Mud. They were doxing him. We survived that and we got stronger. Every time they throw this stuff at us, we get stronger and stronger and stronger. And we can't stop, and you can't waver right now. Now is the time to be getting more support behind all of the other projects that are being built right now, because this is community. Now, they can't stop all of us from doing what we're doing. They won't do that. They won't come at the public. We are the general public, and the SEC wouldn't dare. They're looking for individuals to go after. But look at XRP got off. Look at, they just released Sam from any wrongdoing and any political wrongdoing. So all of that campaign finance bullshit that they were trying to get him on, they dropped it all. I'm not saying that he's going to get completely off, because he is a centralized exchange. He is the one that was in charge. They did blow some money. They did take people's funds. But see, the SEC is there protecting the public, and they're really here to protect us too. We can sit here and say the SEC this, the SEC that, but they're looking for individuals that are doing harm. They're not going to try and come at us when there's nothing there. And there is nothing there with this. But it's going to give us a whole year of global press. And yes, the FUD is going to be hard, and they're going to be dancing on our graves. I tweeted just the other day, when a leader falls, the cowards rejoice. And that's what we're going to see. All of these cowards out there in the other spaces. And I do call them cowards, because these guys will sit there, and when everything's going fine, they'll be silent. They won't say anything. They won't praise Hex. They won't praise Richard. They won't praise our community. They won't say anything. They'll just sit back and yeah, okay, they're winning some, they're making some wins. But when we fail, when we fall, when there's any FUD, they're going to come at us, and they're going to come at us hard. But that's when we need to be stronger. That's when we need to get in their face and say, no, we know what's going on. We know the answers. We're not going to accept your FUD, and we're going to keep moving forward. And in the end, it's going to make us even more powerful and a better community than they've ever seen before. I am excited about this, because I know it's going to burn some of you guys up. It is going to fry you. Some of you sitting in this room right now are going to sell your bags, and you're going to turn tail and run. I promise you that. Some of you will, because it's going to hurt. The pain that's coming is going to hurt. But I'll tell you what, those of you who stick around, those of you who keep building, those of you who stay in here and stronger, you're going to become better. You're going to be a better influencer. You're going to be a better builder. And it's going to make all of the Richard Heart ecosystem even that much more powerful. And this movie is going to take us to places that I don't think that crypto has ever seen before. This is a different type of documentary. This is about a community. This is about the FUD and the FOMO and everything in between. It's done well. It's a beautiful piece of art that they've put together with the soundtrack and the visuals. And no crypto movie's ever been made like this. And shown what this movie's going to show. And the world gets to see it. And they're going to, for a year, hear the FUD and see how horrible everything is, and watch Richard get railed by the SEC and everybody else in crypto. But in the end, we're going to win, and we're going to be so much stronger for it. So I just wanted to give everybody a little bit of inspiration, a little bit of my thoughts, a little bit of what I'm seeing, and let you know that I ain't going nowhere. I'm getting stronger. I'm hiring more people. I'm bringing more people to the table to make this thing really, really, I want to get in the thick of this. I want to be in this fight right now, because this is for the win, guys. This is for the win. Next year is going to be so glorious. I'm telling you, I'm so freaking excited. So that's my 2 cents. Thanks for letting me come in and hang out for a few minutes. I got a million other calls to go answer, and can't wait to see you guys at the premiere. For those of you going to Miami or coming out here in Cali. Thanks, guys.
Appreciate you, Captain. Let's we'll go to the hands. I have no idea who's first. You guys are grown-ups. Figure it out. I think KG is waiting for a long time already. And Angel had a question directed to the builders, and I think that would be perfect for KG to answer. Angel, do you want to bring out your question again?
Yeah, no problem. My question was, as a builder, which I'm building projects for Pulsechain specifically that can go anywhere. But as a builder on Pulsechain, how are you preparing for worst case scenarios? Because if you're a businessman, you should be doing that for this new news. And your thoughts? I'm pretty sure we've all established we all think this is positive. I agree with that. I think this is actually positive and crazy coincidental timing right before the movie. How are we preparing for the worst case scenario as a builder on Pulse Chain? That's my question. I think I worded it differently earlier, but same thing.
You're good. I guess just because we've been waiting on hands, how about we go to any of the builders that are on stage? Do you guys want to pop into that, and then when you put a bow on it, you can just pivot into what you wanted to discuss?
Yeah, just go ahead, KG.
Yeah, sure. Hey, Walrus, how's everyone doing today? Great discussion going on. Great discussion going on. So, yeah, I think that's a great question for the builders is, yeah, what happens if things go worst case scenario? And I guess worst case scenario would be whole thing's dead, everything's wrecked, pulse chain gets turned off, all these things. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think there's too much positive force behind this. I think there's too much economic energy behind this for something like that to happen. So I don't think the worst case scenario or even these imaginary horribles are going to manifest because, to echo the sentiment of everybody else, it's as scary as the SEC is, we've got to think it just put us on the world's stage, Like you're not ignoring the SEC. And this could be just the start of the publicity. I mean, imagine this thing could end up on national TV with Richard Hart or associates in a courtroom fighting for crypto freedom. I mean, we don't know how far this thing goes. I don't know. But it could get really dang cool. And it could be a whole movement because this is not just, an assault on Richard Hart and Hex and Pulse Chain. This is an assault on smart contract sovereignty. This is an assault on what it means to have non-custody. This is an assault on financial freedom. So this isn't just an assault on Richard Hart. And if anybody out there listening is like, oh, I don't like Richard Hart, I want to see him go down. Well, you're thinking so short-sighted because if you believe in crypto, we need wins. We don't need losses rather. We need wins. And so I think that everybody in crypto is incentivized to see this win because that old saying, when they go for the person that you're against and they keep going for all the people that you're against and you support those people, then who's going to be there to come to your defense? So we have to stand together as an industry in situations like this. Richard Hart is not a scammer. No one's been scammed. We're here. We're all transacting on this thing. So there it is. And I guess to finalize the thoughts, as the native Pulse Chain, the founder of the native Pulse Chain wallet, I say that we are not afraid of this scenario. And even if the worst case scenario manifests, as long as the community stands together, we are still a powerful force in a really, really powerful industry. So I feel net bullish and net positive about this whole thing.
Yeah, and just also to provide some POV from a builder's perspective and then to answer your question. I mean, right now we have 36,738 validators online. We have one of the strongest communities with Hex and Pulse Chain. So from a builder's perspective, this essentially means you have users, people that are passionate about it, and people that potentially are open to using your product. On the builder's perspective, and I think this ethos has been heavily instilled by Richard Hart to all of the builders, you guys are all self-reliant. I will not help you, and Richard was pretty clear on that. So all of the builders that I interact, we help each other in building on Pulse Chain. And then also kind of like what Yazan mentioned, we are truly decentralized builders, helping each other, building, not asking for favors by anyone, but building products for users on Pulse Chain. And I think with Pulse Chain, the community grew. And obviously we're going through a bear market, but I still see so many builders building and just waiting for the timing to launch and building critical infrastructure. So I think in many instances that's not really seen by a lot of individuals that just use Pulse Chain to interact, but not necessarily build. But the builder community is really strong. And even when we heard the news today, there was no doubt on stopping or pivoting at all. And I think just to Captain's point earlier, I mean, for us, it was like perfect timing, because this essentially means one, the highest of stakes movie now has even more attendance. One, people will be educated through the movie and through the documentary, which, judging by the trailer, is very controversial, very educational, and will bring more and more eyeballs to Pulsechain, which at the end for the builders means potential users to build for. So just to sum it up, we're really excited about this. We are not willing, or not even planning. There's no doubt to even change. This is, given we have a long time horizon, still really bullish news.
Hey guys, just wanted to piggyback on KG, and I think that's Pulse Domain's sentiment. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, we have this motto where we're in the bear, we build. We're going slightly deeper in the bear, so we should be building harder, right? There's a lot more volume. There's a big stress test going on in the network right now, and that's great for us. Builders love stress tests. We're basically simulating a little bit of the bull market, a few months early. So you should be expanding. You should be stress testing. You should be finding bugs. You should be, everything we just talk about in the builders group and help each other with. So I think that's the approach. I think RG3 was 100% correct. Tremendous opportunity, visibility wise, and builders. This is basically your simulation, right? This is the stress test you wanted. So definitely take advantage.
Love it. Appreciate the builders speaking up. Let's go to Funning Jim, then we'll go to Brennan. Welcome to the stage.
The idea of sovereignty. You choose to work, you choose to put your brand, you push economic energy. I'm looking at, and I would like to hear a little bit more technical, especially since we do have people that peruse these things a lot. KG, I respect a lot of his information, except cookies. I think he always points to evidence on blockchain, as far as reference points. The things that I'm looking at, I pinned at the top, which are basically the beacon information about validators on Pulsechain itself. Of course, looking at PulseX or looking at Deck Screener, that's going to give just like price information more than anything. But I do see, if you want to call it recovery, maybe it's recovery just because people become more steeled, or I really would like to hear more commentary about bridge transactions. Like, is this opportunity in, opportunity out, as far as like the narrative? And again, I'm not trying to talk specifically about price points. I'm trying to talk about the narrative. Is this a sector of speculation that you want to participate in? Cryptocurrencies has always been fraught with risk. 14 years of history or longer. People that start up a forum, post anonymously, decide that they're going to trade until they basically get to a price catalyst point of pizza, and then they trade for pizza, right? So like we have these examples of, this magic internet money is going to replace fiat, is going to replace credit systems, that there's going to be contracts that are trustless in code. Like we have these things for the most part. Most of the ones that I speak, whether they're in this ecosystem or not, that's what I've been hearing for 6 years as a startup investor, someone that invests into startups. I thought it was interesting. This blockchain, it's Bitcoin, not shitcoin. Oh, it's blockchain, not crypto. Like a lot of this is just semantics. A lot of it is just semantics. Like if you believe in something, these are opportunities. So like when people are looking technically at things, what I'm seeing is the price for a validator, as far as price to get involved as a validator, is climbing in the past few hours. I think it got down to $1,600. Now it's like $2,100 worth of economic energy in order to be a validator. So like narratives are important. Choose to do what you're going to do with your time, money, and resources. No one should be shuttling anyone toward making their own decisions, about their life or their future or how they participate or don't in this ecosystem. I just like the information getting out there. And I think that the best opportunity that we have is this movie that releases in a couple of days, and the holdovers that will, basically be the follow-on week after people have water cooler conversations on the internet. There's going to be a lot of YouTube content. There's going to be a lot of Twitter and Instagram content. People are going to try and get TikToks, whether they like RH and this ecosystem or not. They're certainly going to get eyeballs. And, some just want to monetize eyeballs. but it is opportunity. And I think that that's the best play that we have. I don't care what billboard, I don't care what celebrity, if someone had said, hey, I'm curious about this movie. I've got 5 million followers on YouTube. I'm going to go see it on Thursday. Yeah, I don't think you'd have the impact. The holdover dates is interesting. The fact that there's holdovers on the movie itself, the negotiation that I think that the producers have spoken about with streaming platforms, including, I know that RG3 and Kinetics have put this out there, that what they want in order to buy and put marketing budget behind a product on their platform is drama. That's what they want. They don't want kumbaya. People have put money into a common pool, made money. They don't want that. They don't want 7 or 8 success stories that have Lambos, right? That's not what they want. What streaming platforms want is the leads. It bleeds if it bleeds, it leads. That's what they want. So like the timing of this is really, really interesting. And I can't say that, Richard or OA transactions or anything like that are related to the timing. But isn't it amazing? Isn't it amazing? This is like 3 days before. Many of us have been following Richard's content for a long time. Some of us have been close enough to have meals with him and things like that, or be part of these anniversary events, live streams, 6-hour, 24-hour, 48-hour streams, things like that, right, over the years. And again, I know that it's on maybe some streams with Richard even. Who didn't expect this to happen? Who didn't, being around cryptocurrency, watching other episodes of XRP, of EOS, of these Odyssey streaming platforms, who hasn't expected that Richard, the outrage marketer for 2 years, if you want to call it outrage marketing, trying to get the attention of who? You and me? Instagram followers? Who has he been trying to get the attention of? In my mind, it has been the SEC. In my mind, it has been where's he going to disappear to? Is he going to go to a different castle and buy 20 million other watches, $20 million worth of other watches? What's the reason of having a war chest of 600 million die? What is that reason? We all speculate, because we want to line our own bags, that it's going to be liquidity, or it's going to push the price, a magic carpet ride. I don't think that Richard has been signaling that, like, really. If I'm looking through my own bias lens, I don't think that Richard is infallible. I think that he has communication challenges at the very least, if I want to be friendly about that. I think that he has a strong desire to replace the name Satoshi, to replace the name Vitalik, to replace the name Hoskinson. Who else do you know in the top 3 of influence in cryptocurrency? Is it any of these traders? Is it the BitBoy that's basically evangelizing on your behalf? Who is it? And I think that Richard doesn't have other prizes in his 40s to accomplish. So, I think there's been a lot of blind faith. I've obviously put blind faith in aligning brand, putting time, putting capital. What do you call it? The tragedy of the commons, right? A lot of us put resource into this common pool of a logo and a brand and a culture, like we have. That's what we do. And I think that Richard, as the figurehead, to think that this wasn't coming, even especially when there's letters that came out from the SEC a year ago, even when I was part of, with RG3 and Kinetics and others, to launch the Hex Investment Trust. Hundreds of thousands of dollars of legal fees, legal costs, right? Basically, to get that process to mimic and be actually launched by the same law groups and approved by the same entities as Grayscale, right? Why did we do all that stuff? We had opinion letters about the nature of the products of Hex specifically. Now, Pulsechain and Pulsex, different animal. Later in the evolution of this logo and gradient that many of us wear, right? So, to think that this wasn't always going to happen, I think is naive. I think everyone that has had more than 6 months of being in or around hexagons, even all of the ones that were in the Twitter spaces I was listening to earlier and was on stage with Melker and these other lawyers that were with Richard back in the day. They all said the same thing. I knew it was going to happen. I knew it was going to happen. I knew 4 years ago. Eric has gone on for the past 30 minutes now in the stream saying, hey, man, I knew it was going to happen. I knew it was going to happen here. Like who didn't? Who honestly didn't? So what I see is obviously volatility in the charts. What I see is, some people are going to say, this is my opportunity to hit the parachute and exit. Some are going to say, this is, I'm going to buy into the blood, like as far as your economic decisions, whatever you're going to make as far as your economic decisions. But really, why are you in crypto? You could do other things with your capital. You could do other things with your time. You could do other things with your community building skills. Dig a well in Africa, build a church in, Svengali or something, right? Do something else with your life and purpose if you choose to. But I think, at least I'm speaking for myself, I participate in this because if you're saying that cryptocurrency should be permissionless transactions, if you're saying that you should have, freedoms that are not CDC, central bank digital currency controlled decision making about inflation rates or about permission to transact, like if you have these values that have been, the seeds have been dropped surely by Richard to most of this community because we have gobbled up that content, and I don't know that we searched it out on YouTube by anybody else if our bags weren't impacted by these narratives, right? So if you think that cryptocurrency is more than a ticker on the internet, then maybe this is the opportunity. EOS went through its fundraise, and Brock Pierce and Dan Larimer and a lot of EOS people bought hundreds and hundreds of acres in Puerto Rico. Basically, almost all of downtown, the main strip in Condado is bought, basically by crypto people in the EOS launch in 17 and such. There's like 20 or 30 buildings. I just took a photo like 3 days ago of the Mason Lodge. It's like this big building in Old San Juan that Brock bought basically with EOS fundraising. And what was the outcome of that? The outcome of it was $4 billion raised, $27 million fine, I believe is what was the fine, and then went on as usual, went on with its own narratives about what it was going to do, right? Its pitch. So are you involved because of the chart? Are you involved because of the theme, the narrative? Are you just kumbaya like many of us? Why are you here? This is you can't buy this advertising. Again, to highlight what Toby said, which is absolutely true, you're not going to have thousands of other non-RH people talking, for hours like they're doing right now, other than bringing this to highlight. And I think that Richard always had it in the design. I think timing is one thing, but to think that he was going to exit with money and live in a castle happily ever after, always knowing the perils of government oversight, is foolish. I think that Richard, could see that writing on the wall. And, if it goes to speaking principles in a high court, maybe that's what the entire culture needs. Richard, to me, wants to replace the name Satoshi. Richard, to me, wants to replace the love and adulation that Vitalik, currently holds. That's my view on what's going on this morning.
Thank you, Gary, for your opinions. I think I couldn't agree more with what you were saying. I was quietly in the background DMing all the Hex community leaders right now to also step up, come to our Twitter space and speak your mind. I think the Hex community really deserves some opinions of the Hex community leaders, and this is what we are doing with this Twitter space right now. I see, 1 second, I see Winluck is having his hand up, and then afterwards we go to Donald.
Hey, okay, so Gary, that was so well said, man. I hope he doesn't settle. I hope he takes this to the wall. Let's go to the Supreme Court. Let's go do whatever we got to do to not let anything settle and make it a point. This is, I think, the SEC's final downfall after, I guess, FTX is going to go away quietly because of the massive corruption that's been going on. And now this is a diversion. To what Walrus was saying earlier regarding jurisdiction, I think, dude, you're right. It's hysterical. It's like buying a gun in one county, going to commit a crime in another county and saying the jurisdiction is in the county where you bought the gun, right? So that's just complete nonsense being in New York. And it's interesting, the SEC, don't ever forget, you can do anything with the SEC. That their MO has always been, as long as you disclose in the prospectus disclosure is key, right? As long as you disclose what you're going to do. So I'm going to build a company. I'm going to sell you rocks. I'm going to find them, whatever, and I'm going to charge you $1 million a rock. As long as I disclose it, it's okay, right? You get whatever. At the end of the day, we've all disclosed and knew very, very well that this was a sacrifice, and we knew what that was, and everyone saw that over and over and over again. Let's just not forget that. I understand what they're going to try to say. Oh, we all knew what it really was. Yeah, that's all conjecture.
My turn. I had to say that I was in listening to Eric Wall for a while, and the thing is like the way he was talking about hexagons as if we were just being duped and we were coming from, you know, trailer parks and stuff, and that we didn't know any better, and he felt sorry for us. That was kind of laughable. But what's really irritating is that I could not get up there to speak because obviously they're a bunch of Bitcoin maximalists over there, so they wouldn't let me come up and speak. So here I have a forum to speak, and I agree with what Gary was saying earlier. But the thing is with Eric too, as at some point in time, there was a point in time when he had said, he goes, when he was looking at Hex, he realized that it was not a scam, it was not a Ponzi. And he basically said that in front of his whole group. So his whole group has a different idea of what Hex is now because of his own words. So when he's trying to speak and make his points and stuff, and you know, he even said that he's bet some hexagons and he's won some money from certain hexagons. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But at the same point, I mean, it's like, it's funny that a person like him will be out there saying this stuff, and it's like, it feels to me like if this was a non-thing, why are you even speaking about it? If it was so insignificant, why are you speaking about it, other than the fact that there's this so-called Richard Hart versus the SEC filing now? So, yeah, that's basically what I wanted to say. I just think that whole group is really, really kind of like, it's kind of like they've got a lot of veiled insults and stuff towards the Hex community, and it's really uncalled for, and it's actually there's a lot of it that's just not valid, and it's a shame. It's a real shame that we can't get in there and actually speak when we're the ones that they're talking about.
Hey,
So,
can I ask a
anyways,
question? Can I ask a question to Gary, to Gary and Warren specifically? The fact that you guys state that it's no surprise to any Mexican that this would be coming down the pike, right? It shouldn't be any surprise to Richard Hart either, right? So am I too far to say that maybe the release of this was already pre-planned between the SEC and Richard's team, and like they already have a deal in place, and maybe this is just another level of 40 chess that Richard somehow concocted where he gets free marketing for this movie, 3 days before?
I wouldn't put anything past Richard, like in his genius and how it may all probably work out in our favor, right?
I'll be honest with you. Like I think, I mean, personally, Hexagon Soldier, I mean, I've said this numerous times on stream that the main reason why he stopped streaming was because of the SEC. Like, and every time somebody said something like that in the public, nobody wanted to hear it. Nobody wanted to, well, not nobody, but many people didn't want to hear it. Many people thought that the change of persona was something that was done, I guess you could say, out of, I guess you could say, a perception change. When realistically speaking, with unfortunately all of the SEC, we just saw a couple days ago, even though this happened a month ago, this came out yesterday, that the SEC literally tried to shut down all of cryptocurrency with the exception of Bitcoin on Coinbase. So this doesn't surprise me. And if you look at EOS, for example, EOS raised about $4 billion and they paid a fine. And none of this surprises me in the end. And I don't really see this as anything. I think this is just, again, coordinated by all of the network outlets in cryptocurrency that are just using this as ammunition because they know that Richard Hart's a controversial figure, and unfortunately, many people are going to attack him and the community, and it's not surprising that no one's able to speak in these other spaces that are not Hex and Pulse Chain oriented, but are trying to talk about Hex and Pulse Chain, because citizen journalism is already gatekept to begin with. You're not going to be able to, unfortunately, speak in other Twitter spaces about this, but I think this has already been something that's obvious. I think that, excuse me, I think this is pretty much something that's been going on for months behind the scene. I think it all really started with the subpoenas with the Hexicans about, I don't know, what was that, 7-8 months ago. So I'm not surprised that this has happened. It's just a matter of how long it'll last now. So in my personal opinion, this is kind of something that was going to happen, whether it be sooner or later, nonetheless, especially with the SEC stance that everything's a security. Yeah, a security except Bitcoin. This doesn't surprise me.
And for real, and for real, guys, not to cut you off, but seriously, even if that's not the narrative, right? Like, who the hell else can control the narrative but us? Like, we know the truth, right? So we don't care what they think. If we put the narrative out there of what it is and we get free marketing for this movie, like, that's what it really boils down to. If we just put our heads together and just focus on that, that's all that really matters. You know, it's our narrative. It's not theirs to make.
And how do we do that? With memes. I've pinned one to the top. Share it away. Let's lighten the sentiment to joke about it, because we, to be honest, most of crypto already knows Gary Gensler is a joke. So let's use this in our favor.
Ridiculous to me. The claim to make, if they want to say it should be in the US, because Richard's not in the US, many people aren't, it was worldwide, is it like some percentage of the funds raised came from the US, but they don't even raise that as a cause there. So it does not seem well written to me. Again, some of the factual errors they have, including like pricing of things at time, I know is off, listing out some of the things, again, around validators, what their claim is jurisdiction. It does feel very much like, hey, I want to take a fine. So again, as far as for the XRP, the big thing for most people is that secondary sales are basically off the table. But again, they still went and kind of crushed library. So overall, I think to take from those is those cases aren't finished either. They are like fairly regional cases, so they're not going to set a standard, but they do make it hard to see that this one here is going to stick very heavily. So again, it just looks like they're going for a fine for me. The 12 million though, that's not as clear as people would think. So it doesn't even necessarily matter that they can show that funds were spent from there. It has to show that it was misallocated. So that comes back to that discussion around reasonable expectations and what was said around the sacrifice language. So again, if a reasonable person could say, hey, there's $1 billion there, do I think that maybe those funds don't all get used specifically for code? Like, that's a big discussion there, right? Like, that's how that stuff can be misallocated. So to me, again, it's weak. None of the individual points feel very strong to me.
Yeah, especially that one. Like, I mean, the dude can afford to buy some Lamborghinis and fucking Gucci, but way before. How you gonna like pinpoint like, all right, this specific fucking dollar went from here to here into a fucking,
So
it's retarded.
That's actually what I'm kind of getting to when I bring up like. So they don't get into like where they think the claims are from, which to me would be a huge part of trying to say, hey, they have jurisdiction there. They avoid it and use this Uniswap claim. And on saying the 12 million specifically, that's where I think it's a big deal, is because if you say that, you'd almost have to say it's like one of those things, either like everything's a miracle or nothing is. If you say that those 12 million specifically, you're either saying that, hey, we don't have an idea where the rest of these funds went, or that the rest of these are okay, and there's some pass fail that went on with those particular funds. And so it's easy for us to say, oh, well, he could have spent any money, but it doesn't mean that money wasn't removed there and they weren't able to say that it came from the same wallets. But that claim of saying that only this 12 million is misallocated, and again, there's reasonable reasons to show why it wouldn't be, but just saying that, hey, this is the 12 we're picking as an issue, and here's how we're picking jurisdiction, those are weak claims, right? The term that gets used a lot is a juke. So like if you think of like playing in football, but in like legal expression, a juke is when you do something over the top because you don't have good cores, right? If you had all your ducks in a row, then you play it right down the center. You're very vanilla. You just say, hey, look, you raised funds in the US. It's a security. Here's why. Here's your investment contract. These funds are misused. This isn't what you told people. And you kind of walk down the list. This one here is like a fairy tale of he's a big guy and they're quoting YouTube videos. That's not how you would really process and write this. If you were like, hey, I have this guy dead to rights. Here's all the money. Here's the problem. So it doesn't feel cleanly thought out and written.
It's almost used for shock value, right? Like this guy's buying airplanes and Ferraris with the funds that we say that he's, like they don't have control of it in the first place. Like, who's to say it's not his personal funds before he was a millionaire before, right? Like, it's a reach.
Well, that's the problem. They wouldn't they have to make it very, very clear or show proof in court that it's gone directly into those purchases?
So this is where things get even again, it gets harder to even show is there's no incorporation around those, right? So again, if you want to say they were sent to a personal fund, that weakens your claim that there's misallocation, right? Like if let's step away from the language, what like the rest of the context. If you just send stuff to my personal wallet and some of it gets spent, like that makes that misallocation harder. Like a reasonable person starts to have less expectations that if you send things to somebody's personal wallet, they just don't get spent how that person chooses. So again, there is certain rules there, but since these things aren't incorporated, those wallets are just, again, if you want to go from the lens they're using, are just his wallet. So how is he misappropriating his own funds in some way? So they almost kind of have to pick a stance and pick an angle, and that makes the rest of these things a little more difficult to deal with. So they not only have to show that was specifically customer funds, but also that they consider that a misallocation, right? Almost the same as if a company takes a business trip and they splurge on invest on some of their employees. Is that misallocation for partying, or is that factored into the budget of doing business? So again, being personal funds, not incorporated, being a small portion of overall funds, knowing that there's other options and reasonable, like again, you just kind of get to layers of these things you have to prove and prove beyond. It's not a reasonable doubt because it's civil court, but you have to prove above expectation. So like, again, you keep adding facet to facet to facet of trying to make this stuff work.
I've been quiet because I'm looking around who else is hosting Twitter
Can I go?
Spaces. We were hearing that Mario was hosting something, but already went down. And I'm seeing right now a Twitter Space with 1,600 people. It's probably one of the biggest Twitter Spaces that I personally have seen. And what are they talking about? Richard Hart and the SEC. They have the same topic as we are, and it's bringing the eyes, and that's all that matters in crypto. Richard Hart
Eric
has
Wall
recognized
talking
that
a
very
bunch of his
early on,
bullshit.
right? That only the eyes matters. Okay, we have two hands up here.
No,
Before we went Toby and Rob D.
Yeah, I just
Hey,
kind of
what's
wanted
up,
to
guys?
can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, Robbie D, go ahead. I only got a couple minutes, so if you go long
Yeah,
on.
man, I'm not going long. I'm going quick. Just want to say it's important not to speculate a bunch. We're all speculating here on a lot of stuff, but based on what is written, when they say something about fraud, the only reason really is because people have been calling them and saying, hey, we've been ripped off. Seeing that that's most likely not the case in this community, it's got to be something else. Plus, all you have to do, it's bullshit, because all you have to do is go look at the origin addresses. He hasn't touched a dime. So if they're saying that he's misappropriating funds, I had to do this 2 weeks ago because I had a client say this same bullshit. Oh, but he's bought all this stuff with my money. I was like, oh, really? Okay, let's go look at the origin address. Not a dime has been touched. So it's complete bullshit. I've known Richard before Hex. He had lots of money before Hex. He got into Bitcoin in 2010, guys. I mean, he had gobs of money before. Yeah, so I mean, he bought all this stuff with his own money. So anyway, I just wanted to say that, and thanks for bringing me up. Just let's look at the facts. What's out there, and this is either a good marketing ploy or it's complete bullshit.
Good points. Hey, I, as a producer of the film, I felt like I should weigh in a little bit. You cannot buy this kind of advertising. This is fucking amazing. It's like I literally want to send like a fruit basket to Gary Gensler. It's hilarious, the timing of this. It's like there have been so many serendipitous events that have happened like in the history of Hex, and I think this is going to be ranked way up there on the list because it's like, I'm telling you, it's like I've talked with the marketing team. I'm an investor in this film. We never thought for a minute that we would ever even, come close to making a profit. We might actually make money on this film now. It's like, I mean, if this doesn't get like, Netflix's attention, larger global streaming services attention, I don't know what's going to do it, because we've pulled out all the stops, like everything we know to do. We pivoted. We're doing a theatrical release. We've got, Hexagon meetups around the country, holdover dates because of sellouts, all the stuff we know how to do. And then like from the sky, like this little bald baby bird, like parrot that is fucking Gary Gensler like the little baby angel that he is, comes flopping down and is like, ta-da, here's the best frickin' PR I could give you for this film.
Take that,
Go
World
absolutely
Star.
viral. Yeah, right. And then there's I heard something about World Star too, so that'll be fun. But yeah, I mean, I think a lot of this right now is like other things I've seen come through the Hex community. I mean, it's like I've been around since before day one. I think it's important for people to be able to voice their concerns, to be able to talk this stuff out, to validate one another and to just vent, because it is upsetting. I've got one of my onboards that's already wrecked himself again. He wrecked himself on the buck fiat candle. He wrecked himself today, in my opinion. Selling into the fear. I think, my personal opinion, not financial advice, hold tight through this stuff. I see it as buying opportunities. You know me, I'm always buying. Unfortunately, I'm on vacation right now. I don't have my treasures with me, or I would be like all over it. And I didn't have a limit order set over on Matcha before I left. So I'm just kind of like watching and like licking my chops.
I'm pulling out my credit cards.
Yeah, right. No doubt. Right. It's like I'm literally tempted to like put MetaMask on my phone, which is like a giant no. It's like, well, I could do this and get a little bit of something. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think this is great what you guys are doing with the space and, open it up to people to talk about this stuff. But like from, as one of the producers of the film, it's like I'm elated. I'd imagine the other producers and the directors and the team on the film are elated as well, because this is absolutely like this is advertising you can't buy. Like money cannot buy this kind of advertising. So, don't look at it as, it's as like a bad thing necessarily. It's kind of like a weird universal source of outrage marketing, right? It's about eyeballs. The only bad publicity is no publicity. We just got put on the front page everywhere. And one little thing to like sprinkle in there for the conspiracy theorists, FTX just walked. Sam Bankman-Fried just walked, right? Well, what better thing to take the focus off of that fucking debacle to put Richard Hart and his Lamborghinis and his Ferraris and his Rolexes and his fat ass on every newspaper and news channel across the world, because now we're going to get this guy, right? So play around with that one, because I think that might be part of the thing. It's a little curious, the timing, don't you think? So
And this film merits this, though. The quality of the film you made, oh my gosh, bro! Like this film totally needs this. Your film is amazing, bro.
Yeah, there's nothing there. I mean, it's like this is so, and there's like what, a guy in Brooklyn. Like, did anyone else read the 27 pages? I read the 27 pages, and it's like there's a guy in Brooklyn. Okay, so there's a disgruntled guy in Brooklyn that apparently thought like, hey, I thought my money was going to go toward this. I haven't made a return yet.
Definitely
Blah,
not
blah, blah,
me.
bullshit.
Definitely not me.
And then they got to do their due diligence.
Where'd my ETH
They got to
go?
do their due diligence and follow through with it. So they're doing what they do, right? So it's like, I think it's all going to blow over in time. I think ultimately, it's I'm an eternal optimist, but the way I'm looking at it is, hey, when all this stuff is behind us, just like XRP, like when all this stuff is behind us, what the fuck are they going to do next? What can hold us back from what we're totally capable of?